What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode here, the Side Guys Football Forum. I'm one of your co-hosts on the side, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of the Side Guys, Tad the Side. And Tad, I texted you this before we started recording, and it's like literally this entire week is like, I don't know what the NFL planned this, but just like, let's take things up to 11 because, I mean, seriously, like we got such a flurry of moves through free agency. We got a lot of trade action as well, like involving players, involving draft picks. Like, I mean, seriously, like, this was a good week for you to be on spring break because you could catch up on everything. Like,
no, I still haven't. I still haven't.
That's the crazy thing too. Is like I'm pretty sure there might be some news that you missed because it's been that chaotic and that action packed of a week here in the very opening week of the new league year. It's just, man, yeah, this is pretty active, 100%.
This is what I love so much about the NFL is like, any other sports league owns a space, they're like, oh no, we're coming after that space. We saw that this year when they were like, oh, NBA, you think you dominate Christmas? No, we're going to put some games on Christmas as well. And you know what happened? They dominated Christmas. And now they're like, you know what, NBA, spring's going on. Baseball hasn't started yet. You think you dominate that? Or don't ask me anything about the NBA. I haven't looked at Heat, schedules in the past 4 days. There's so much going on. I'm overwhelmed. I'm exhausted. I'm trying to do scouting here, NFL. Like, why are you doing this to me?
Says the guy wearing a Miami Heat hat right now.
Yeah. I'm trying to be a good fan, but it's so hard to be a good fan and a good host and a good teacher. There's a lot going on right now.
But seriously, yeah, the NFL, like if you're an NFL fan, it's like you're waiting for the next season to start. Well, it's like this is where you sort of get your sort of fix where it's just like it's crazy packed as far as now you're predicting as far as just, how these players are going to do, how these teams are going to do. You got, so much action, so much change. It's just like, yeah, it's so much just, a lot to take in. And exactly like you said, it's like, we're about, Selection Sunday for March Madness happening on Sunday, but it's like in between all of that, in between all that, it's like, yeah, the NFL's like, you know what? Let's slip all this in before the MLB season starts, before March Madness starts. It's like, let's get all this craziness out right now. And yeah, if you're a football fan, it's like, yeah, this is pretty fun for sure. So, and yeah, I mean, we're bringing up all these sports here, Tad. Like, I mean, let's definitely promote our good friends at Underdog Fantasy because, I mean, yeah, with all this crazy action happening in the NFL, with Selection Sunday for March Madness happening on Sunday, with the NBA playoffs, with, just a couple weeks away, MLB season is only a couple weeks away. Like, if you're a sports fan, this is the perfect time for you because there's a lot going to be happening in the next couple of weeks here. And Underdog Fantasy has you covered with all of their betting action. You make anywhere between 2 and 5 different prop bet picks across any sport. They got you covered with the MLB, men's basketball, women's basketball, NBA action, the NFL free agency. I'm pretty sure they got some over under with some NFL team wins. They got the season long picks with the MLB as well. So, I mean, yeah, guys, get into it. There's a lot of fun you could be having on their betting platform. The more picks you make between, like I said, anywhere between 2 and 5, more potential money you can win. And guys, get into the action using our promo code DESAI, DESAI. You could double up on your initial deposit of $10 or more up to $500. I mean, hypothetically, if you were to max that out, if you were to put $500 on your first deposit, Underdog Fantasy will match that dollar for dollar, and you could bet with $1,000 on their betting platform. So, I mean, guys, get into the action. Use that promo code you see on your screen. If you're not watching us on YouTube, I'll say that promo code for you. It's DESAI, DESAI. So, guys, get into the action because, yeah, like we said, it's going to be a wild couple of weeks, wild month, probably next 30 days or whatever with March Madness and the MLB season starting. And obviously we got NFL free agency. We got the men's and women's tournament in March Madness. So, I mean, yeah, it's going to be a lot of things you can be betting on. Why not make some money as we head into the summer months here? Just coming right around the corner here, sort of thing. So yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. So use our promo code DESAI, DESAI, double up our initial deposit of $10 or more, up to $500 on Underdog's fantasy platform. So with all the craziness that's been happening this past week, Tad, like, I mean, we kind of had to dive into it. So we're going to give it our best, fantasy spin here. So, I mean, before we sort of get into some of the categories that we wanted to like list out for some of these, because we can't dive into everything. So, guys, please, I mean, you see the socials coming right down below. If there's anything that we don't cover in today's episode when it comes to fantasy football, hit us up. We'd love to give you our thoughts, but just there's so much to cover. We can't do it in one episode. So we thought we'd just sort of highlight some of the ones that I think could make the most significant impact. But definitely, once the draft is over, we'll dive into these things a little bit further. Once we get to the offseason, we have a lot more time to spread out our analysis and really give you in-depth knowledge. But yeah, in the intermediate, you need something very quickly. You need like action as far as like, how do you feel about this guy signing here? What do you think about this trade? Like if we didn't cover it on today's episode, hit us up. We'll definitely give you our analysis for sure through social media or maybe on a future episode. But just, yeah, there's too much to cover, Tad. So it's like we're going to try our best.
There's literally hundreds and hundreds of moves. I wish I was exaggerating that there weren't literally 100 plus moves made in the last 4 days. But yeah, according to my last count, we are at nearly 300 players have changed teams in the last couple days, and it's absolutely insane. So let's get in it. I mean, it's just what do you want to talk about first? I don't know where to start here.
I think let's start with probably the bigger news that happened probably the last couple of days here. It's a big trade. Los Angeles Chargers have traded their stalwart wide receiver Keenan Allen to the Chicago Bears. And then here's the crazy thing, Ted. The compensation was what perplexed me a lot, is that all they got in return was a 4th-round pick in this year's draft in 2024. So, I mean, it's like you look at the Chicago situation, you get a very good veteran receiver in Keenan Allen to pair up with DJ Moore. Whether this is for Justin Fields' offense or whether this is for Caleb Williams' offense or somebody else at quarterback, it's like, I don't know what to say there. But he's definitely got some weapons now, because you have to look at that. They signed DeAndre Swift in the offseason as well. I will touch on that maybe a little bit later here, but just, yeah, let's focus on Keenan Allen here. I mean, just like he got a veteran wide receiver. He was able to overcome those injuries that he was dealing with early in his career in Los Angeles and briefly San Diego, obviously. And he's been a very dependable receiver for the Chargers. And it's just like very surprising that they decided they wanted to move on. This is also after news that they released Mike Williams. So now they're missing both of their starting receivers.
Which means who's their number one receiver?
I don't know if that gives Chargers fans any optimism right now.
I don't care. I don't care. He had a bad season because of a bad system. We have had this conversation before.
Oh yeah, they're gonna do a lot better with Jim Harbaugh's run first system. Like
Jim Harbaugh saw him run all over him during the Fiesta Bowl, so maybe now he knows how to use him.
You make a good point, but yeah, this is still just a very interesting situation to monitor as far as like, are they going to make some upgrades through the draft? Is there going to go like the second wave of free agency, make some additions on the Chargers side? But it's like, yeah, you look at the Chicago Bears, like they must be pretty happy with this move to only give up a 4th and get a very solid, very dependable receiver in Keenan Allen to pair it with DJ Moore, like I said. So that offense is good to go. But yeah, you'll flip it to the Chargers side here. It's just like, who's there now? Like, I mean, they signed Gus Edwards, which is like, I think probably their most notable offensive signing, but it's like outside of Justin Herbert, it's like, I don't know what to expect from this offense. So, I mean, Tad, I want to get your thoughts as far as like the Chargers side, the Bears side, like, I mean, go in whichever direction you want to go to, but this is a very interesting move to see coming across my, ticker timeline on my phone here. I was just like, wow, I really just didn't expect this one.
Well, so I think the key part to this to remember from the Chargers side is the fact that they are in cap hell right now, that there was a realistic potential chance that they cut 5 star players, not just players, but star players between Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Mike Williams, and Keenan Allen, among others, that they cut them to save cap space because right now they just did not handle their cap space situation at all, and they're currently dealing with the fallout from that. So the trade compensation didn't really surprise me all that much, where it was just like, just get this guy's numbers off my books. I've forgot to look up the exact numbers, but I think they're saving around $10 to $15 million by trading and getting Keenan Allen off their books. So, well, yes, this is not the ideal trade, and obviously you want to put Justin Herbert in a better situation. I do understand where Los Angeles is coming from by making this move, because you just got to clear up some space, especially with the new regime coming in that wants to remake this roster and their, and the way they want to make it up to be. On the Chicago side of this, A+ trade. I mean, A+. And there's a key word that you use that I want to bring up again, which is veteran. You're bringing a veteran type of leadership into this offense that they're sorely going to need, whether they stick with Justin Fields or Caleb Williams. Either way, both are very young quarterbacks that need that kind of, consistent, at least off the field, consistent receiver presence. And I say off the field because, yes, obviously Keenan Allen struggled to stay on the field, but I think it's a risk worth taking because, let's be real, what 4th round pick is really, honestly, do you have a solid shot at producing the same as Keenan Allen, even if it is just for 12 games? And on top of all of this, we saw this with DJ Moore in Carolina, where he does best being the stretch the field guy. He does not do his best as the number 1 guy. So now you have an every down dependable receiver. Okay, I can dump it off to Keenan for 5 yards, and the next play hit DJ for 30. I think that this was an excellent move for the Chicago Bears. Chargers, so Bears, I give like an A, right? An A trade grade. Chargers, like a B-, B. I don't hate it as much as some Chargers fans because I'm realistic. You guys are headed for a rebuild. It sucks. Trust me, as a Colts fan, I'm well aware it's going to be quite a long time until you guys are really back into like, are we the best team ever? But on top of all of this is, I was talking with my friend Matt, and he brought up a point. I kind of want to argue against him, but I couldn't. He said, if they do draft Caleb Williams, this is the best situation a number 1 draft pick has ever walked into. Between Gerald Everett, Cole Kmet, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, who we'll get into later. This is a great offense to set up a young quarterback for immediate success. And the best part is, it doesn't matter who that quarterback is. They're set up for success. So for the Bears, excellent move. For the Chargers, not great, but I get it.
Yeah, I think just the big thing is just like you look at the Chargers and they were just like so close. They were like knocking on the door for like the past couple of seasons as far as, making the playoffs and making a run. They made the playoffs 2 years ago. Fortunately, had that horrendous loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's like you thought that they could be right on the door there as far as like being a contender. But just, with these types of moves, it's just like, maybe they are heading towards, is sort of a rebuild, a retool, and sort of just like adjustment as far as the overall roster because of just like the salary situation. So I'm very intrigued as far as what sort of moves they make to sort of fix their offense. Because as of right now, I'm not very optimistic as a Chargers fan as far as what that offense is going to do.
And it's interesting too, because the Chargers have such limited draft capital right now. They're sitting on a handful of picks where it's like, at number 5, you can grab a Brock Bowers, you can grab a Roman Dunzier, you can grab a Malik Neighbors. But is that player worth more than trading down and collecting more capital and maybe going for the more long-term thing? It will be fascinating to see, especially with the Vikings. Speaking of shit happening at nonstop speed, the Vikings are in the first round now. How about that? So the Vikings, for those of you who don't know, traded a boatload of mid-round picks to get the Houston Texans first-round pick at 24, I want to say. 24, am I correct there? Mm-hmm. So the Vikings are clearly gearing up for a trade up for someone, as they should, because you should not go into the season with Sam Darnold. That's a bad move. Don't do that. So could the Vikings potentially move up to number 5 and the Chargers trade back? I don't know, but it also wouldn't blow me out of the water. I won't have my hands on my head on draft night if that happens, because the Chargers number 5, they're prime trade back candidates.
Well, Ted, I need to correct you on something. The Vikings are actually acquiring their second first-round pick. So they already have number 11.
They're back in the
now
first
they have exactly. They have a second pick in the first round now, acquiring the Texans pick. So one of those is probably going to be moved to potentially get a quarterback to upgrade over Sam Darnold. But we'll dive into all that draft stuff in a future episode. But Keenan Allen, instant reaction as far as fantasy value, Ted. What do you think about him in Chicago?
Love him. Yeah. He's a wide receiver 2 floor. Potential high wide receiver 1. So if I'm in a redraft league, I'm looking at him as a mid to late second rounder is where I think he should be going. Because again, it's not a DJ Moore thing where, he's a little streaky. Like he'll have one game that's good, one game that's bad. I think you're going to see a very consistent, feed of targets from Keenan Allen. So especially if you're in a half PPR league or a PPR league, I think that is going to pay off huge dividends for you, if you decide to ride with him. And again, I know that injury concerns are a big thing, but he really hasn't missed a ton of time other than other freakish injury. He's not Julio Jones, right? Where it's like, oh God, this hamstring thing's back. It's like, if he avoids these like freakish out there major injuries, he will produce for you. And I think that this offense is going to be competitive in a lot of games. So I like Keenan Allen a lot as a wide receiver too, as a floor. So if I'm sitting there at, back in a wide, round 2, okay, I got myself a quarterback, I got myself a receiver, or I have myself 2 receivers, 2 running backs, excuse me. Because if you have 2 receivers, leave him alone. But if I have 2 good running backs, I'm like, all right, who's this like low end receiver people are undervaluing? Keenan Allen's a good one.
Yeah, especially if you're picking like number 1 overall and you could take a good running back with your first pick, and then you don't get a pick until all the way at the end of the second, top of the third.
McCaffrey and Allen, that's dirty. That's a dirty
exactly.
combo.
You get a guy like McCaffrey with round 1, then in round 2 you come back with Keenan Allen, then round 3 you can sort of get another solid running back, or vice versa, whatever it is. But just like that's a perfect time to get Allen, because by the time your next pick comes in round 4, he's gonna be long gone before that one. So yeah, we'll get into all that. Obviously, we got the off season as we get closer to fantasy football. But yeah, Keenan Allen in Chicago, I think that's a great addition for not only himself and his fantasy stock, but DJ Moore's fantasy stock will see a slight rise as well, getting a good complimentary piece on the other side.
Good call.
All right, let's get into all the other news. Like, we definitely want to dive into some other players that have made some moves, whether it comes through free agency, whether it comes to trade, whatever it is. But we're talking about Keenan Allen, how his value has sort of increased a little bit. Talking about DJ Moore, his value has increased. But Tad, who's another guy with some of these recent moves that happened this past week that just increased their fantasy value this week?
Let's keep it in Beantown, baby. Let's keep going. DeAndre Swift. And this was funny because that was, to my knowledge, that was the first domino fall of this entire week. I think he was the first big time player signed.
I think so, if I remember correctly. That sounds about right.
So he signed a 3-year, $24 million deal with Chicago. And look, I think that, the question below is for our podcast listeners is who helped their fantasy value? There's no player who helped him more than DeAndre Swift, because he finished as running back 23 in half PPR leagues last year. And it is almost entirely due to that damn tush push. You want to call it the Philly special, Philly push, whatever. I'm calling it the tush push because it's bullshit. But anyway.
Brotherly shove, I think.
So brotherly shove. That's the name I was forgetting. Either way, it's a fantasy killer, man. What was it that Jason Kelsey said on his podcast? By the way, ours is better. But Jason Kelsey's well done podcast where he was like, every time they call that play, he'd look at DeAndre Swift and be like, I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know if you saw that or not, but apparently that actually happened where every time they were inside the 5, you just look at DeAndre. It was like, yeah, you're not getting this. And so it robbed a ton of touchdowns from him. But at the same time, DeAndre had kind of a career revival. Let's, time travel back to last August. None of us thought DeAndre Swift was going to be the number 1 running back in Philly. And he performed to the point where he rushed for over 1,000 yards for him. He was very, very good for a very loaded Philadelphia offense. The problem was he wasn't getting those touchdowns to match his, value. Or his usage, excuse me. So you look at where he is now in Chicago, he is, in my opinion, the clear-cut number 1 guy. You have a guy like Khalil Herbert, who is more of the shiftier kind of receiving running back. Fine, whatever. You have Roschon Johnson, who reports have come out ever since they drafted him. They don't really like him all that much. I was singing his praises all year last year, and then he didn't do shit. I think that Chicago is really primed to utilize this guy in a lot of ways. And on top of all this, I get that the crowded running back room is a concern, but I think that when it comes to red zone, because Chicago can't use the damn tush push, brotherly shove, the bullshit play, as I'll call it, I think that Swift is going to end up with a lot of these red zone goal line touchdowns. So I'm talking, like I said with Keenan Allen, floor running back 2, like low key, he could finish as a top 6, 7, 8 running back, and it would not surprise me in the least. In the least, and this is a guy you can get at value. He's not going to go in the first round in any of these drafts. This is a second, third round pick you could get to pay off huge dividends, and that also, by the way, to bring this up, that breaks our show record for the amount of times Tad has had dividends on the show. Please don't ask me to find that.
Don't worry, we know about your, relationship with math and numbers. So yeah, we're not going to
returns.
Also, your financial situation, I think that speaks for how much you probably know about some of these
investments
as well.
Money, IRA.
I think just this backfield. I know you said that the crowdedness sort of doesn't worry you, but I think for me, it's still a question mark for me because I do like DeAndre Swift to sort of take that lead in that backfield, but I think they still want to use Herbert. I know sort of the reports are just that they're not happy with Roschon Johnson, but it's like you don't invest a 4th round pick on the guy unless you're really going to give up on him that soon. So it's like I think they will still want to use him in the mix. You also look at like Deontay Foreman. It's like I know he only signed a 1-year deal, but it's like maybe they entertain bringing him back. But I think with this signing of DeAndre Swift, I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion. He's not coming back. So I agree with everything that you said, that I think the goal line situations for him should definitely increase his value, but just I worry just maybe he's not going to get the yardage totals that he was getting in Philadelphia. He'll get the touchdown numbers, which will still make him a very valuable asset because that's where you're going to get majority of your points then. Obviously getting 6 points per rushing touchdown, depending on your league settings. So, I mean, that I think is definitely going to increase his value, but just I still worry that he's just not going to be involved enough. And also it's just like, depending on who lands at quarterback, that could possibly affect the offense too. So there's still a lot of question marks for me. So it's hard for me to call him a potential. You said top 8 running back this year. Like it's still, I'm pumping the brakes on that one. It's like I could see possibly like being a top 15 running back. That's very easily right now. But I have to see who exactly is going to be playing under center for them before I can sort of make a more declarative, like sort of statement that's just like, yes, I do like DeAndre Swift as their starting running back, or it's like, yeah, this crowded backfield is going to worry me too much. So it's like, I'm going to drop him as an RB2 as opposed to a fringe RB1. So I do like the situation for him. Like I said, I do like him to fit the most out of the backfield options that they have there. But just, yeah, I still think that they want to use the rest of those guys in that backfield. So it's going to hurt his stock.
Capital gains. But no, I mean, going to your analysis, I do agree with a lot of what you said. That is a definite risk. And I will say this, and because you kind of touched on this a little, you hinted at this a little bit. Let's just say it outright. And Justin Fields is still his quarterback, to start next season. His value will not be top 8. Justin Fields is going to take so many touches away from him.
Exactly.
I don't think Justin Fields will be his quarterback, but if he is, I'm giving myself the parachute of this take right now. If Justin Fields is his quarterback, I'm parachuting right out of this take. But as I expect, not that I support this, but I think from all the signs, it's looking like it's going to be Caleb Williams. I made this take last week where by now the Bears would have gotten rid of one or the other. They still have both the first overall pick and Justin Fields. So I don't even think the Bears really know what's going to happen right now. But anyway, point being is, if it's Fields, 100% I agree with you. Top 15 is realistic. Top 8 is astronomical. If it's Williams, I know he's known as a dual threat quarterback, which he is, but he's not run first quarterback. So I actually still like my top 8 prediction with Williams. But I just want to throw that little qualifier out there.
All right.
I want to mitigate my losses.
There you go. Now you actually pretty well. I like that one. Actually brought it all together there. I like it there. I'm going to go with some low-hanging fruit here, Tad. Increased value, 100% Kirk Cousins going to the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah. I also want to go with, I was going to go with Kyle Pitts or Drake London here, but then I saw your pick came in first.
I kind of covered that here with my notes here.
No,
so
exactly,
but it's fair. All their value increases too.
Carry on.
But yeah. 4 years, $180 million with $100 million guaranteed, $50 million coming in a signing bonus. I mean, this guy is getting a serious amount of money to go play in Atlanta now. In 2022, he played 17 games and finished as a QB8 in PPR leagues. Unfortunately, last season, he finished QB 24 because he only played in 8 games. He had that suffering injury at his Achilles, so it's like, obviously kept him out for half the season, so that's why he finished a lot lower. But honestly, like I said, it's just like I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one because it's like we know Kirk Cousins can put up good numbers. This is probably the best set of offensive weapons that he's had during his entire career. Because I mean, it's like you look at his time in Minnesota, he's got Justin Jefferson, he had Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook was a good running back for him, so it was like pretty good there. But he didn't have that elite tight end until they traded for TJ Hawkinson. Like Kyle Rudolph was a good red zone monster, but outside of that, it's like he wasn't getting yardage.
No, he wasn't.
Exactly, yeah. So it's like TJ Hawkinson sort of alleviated some of those issues there, but just like overall, like this skill set that he has here, Bijan Robinson, I know you're sort of talking about last year where it's just like, I don't trust rookie running backs because of the Arthur Smith situation. Your point was very valid. That's like, he still was able to put up really good numbers.
Thank you. It only took a year for me to hear that from someone.
He still put up really good numbers, though, which is why he was still worth being drafted. But just like, yeah, maybe that first round price tag was a little bit too steep. Getting him in the second round would have been a little better, but hindsight's 2020, right? So, I mean, that's the unfortunate thing you can't see there. But now heading into 2024, I 100% like Bijan Robinson, I should say, as a first round draft pick this year, because I mean, you look at what Dalvin Cook did during his time in Minnesota with Kirk Cousins. He had 2 top 10 finishes during his time playing with Cousins out of 4 seasons. There's a couple other seasons where he finished top 12 at least the other 2 seasons. So, I mean, this guy was able to put up really good numbers. Bijan Robinson is younger than Dalvin Cook was. He's in a better system there. I think he should flourish. Drake London. This guy, I think, had all the talent. Just unfortunately, he finished outside the top 30 for 2 straight years because of just Arthur Smith syndrome. I mean, that's just put it plain and simple. This unfortunately killed his draft stock. He was still able to look really good, but then here's the big thing. This is why I'm so very high on Drake London heading into this season. 6th place, 4th place, 1st place, 33rd place. These are all the finishes that Justin Jefferson had since entering the league in 2020. Now, obviously, you look at that 33rd and you're like, okay, that's not.
That's because Josh Dobbs sent him to the hospital.
Well, yeah. The big thing. So he missed 7 games, which led to him finishing outside the top 30. But I mean, 1 year removed, he finished as the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy league. So I mean, it's like you look at Drake London's opportunities here. Kirk Cousins likes to go to his primary receiver. I know they did sign Darnell Mooney and they just traded for Rondale Moore, but Drake London is absolutely going to feast in this offense 100%. So yeah, I very much like him as a good pick to head into 2024. And then, of course, we got to bring up Kyle Pitts. Like, I mean, I think he has a chance to capture his stock that he once had from his rookie year where he put up 1,000 yards. A lot of people are just like, he just needs the touchdowns. But then once again, it's Arthur Smith as to why his production dipped, obviously. But it's like you look at Jordan Reed from back to his time in Washington. He had a 3rd place finish, a 10th place finish, and then Vernon Davis had a 17th place finish. So, I mean, he was involved in the tight end in Washington. Then you look to the Minnesota years where he had Rudolph and Hawkinson. Rudolph had a 7th place finish, a 14th place finish, and then Hawkinson just last year finished 4th place. So, I mean, there's a lot of potential for the tight end to really flourish here, too. So, like I said, I like the weapon set that he has here at Atlanta. Probably the best one that he's had in his career. Kirk Cousins, I think, just getting this new money, new situation. He's a guy that you want to value as a potential top 5 quarterback this coming season.
So, sorry if for our YouTube viewers who saw me do like the, guy head.
I'm guessing you didn't know about the Rondale Moore.
No, when did that happen?
That was the trade for Desmond Ritter. Desmond Ritter's now better of the Atlanta Falcons. In return, the Falcons got Rondale Moore. Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I did not see the Desmond Ritter thing. You let me know about that via text message, so I didn't look into it any further. So they got was it just straight up Ritter for more?
I think there's a draft pick as well, but yeah, the biggest one is just the pick, the player for player swap there with Desmond Ritter.
I think the Falcons won that trade, but let's talk about a little thing I like to call ROI, otherwise known as return on investment.
Exactly.
Yeah. See, it keeps going. But look, I mean, I think Kirk Cousins is the perfect fantasy quarterback going into this season because yes, he's old. Yes, he's coming off an injury, so a lot of people will be doubting him. But he's just surrounded by so many weapons. I don't need to say anything more. You say it with Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, Rondale Moore, Darnell Mooney. Like this is an offense set up for success. I said this in our last episode where Atlanta also has a very solid offensive line. I won't say good.
True.
I won't say good, but is an offensive line you look at and you're like, all right, I have no issues with that. Like, sure, there are better players at every position, but that's pretty good. So Kirk Cousins set up for immediate success. And Amir, I'll be interested to see if you agree or disagree with me. I don't know if this has ever happened to you. This is a problem that happens a lot with me where, I've been a proponent of wait on QB. Do not overdraft a QB. Because a lot of them tend to be in the same area, whether you draft one in the 6th round or 3rd round, wherever, like, unless it's a Mahomes type, and even Mahomes this year didn't really blow it away fantasy wise.
Sure,
No, he didn't, because I had Mahomes. Let me tell you, he really did not. Point being is, don't, just because it's the position with most points, don't feel like you need to rush it. However, on the flip side of things, this has happened to me a lot where I'm sitting there in the 3rd or 4th round, all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit, all the good guys are gone.
It's very true. It's
And
very
I'm like,
true. I think a lot of fantasy leagues is sort of shifting that way, where it's like quarterback has taken a major priority now, as opposed to it being running back in the past. So yeah, I don't doubt that quarterback runs could happen a lot sooner as we trend towards future fantasy league seasons. So yeah, when that sort of adage of like waiting on a quarterback because there's a lot of them out there that you can still get good value later, it's like if you want one of the good ones, like a Lamar Jackson, like a Josh Allen, like a Jalen Hurts, you may have to invest an early pick on them to get them.
Exactly, because otherwise you're sitting there with a bunch of capital and nowhere to invest it in. So point being is, I think Kirk Cousins is a perfect guy to kind of slip through those cracks where, like, I think you got to jump on him at the right time, but he could fall further than he should. So like a 3rd or 4th round quarterback, I really do think that Kirk Cousins could, or has the potential. I'm not saying he will, but he definitely has the potential to finish as a top 5 quarterback. Because let's also not forget that he's going into an offensive system under Zach Taylor, the new offensive offensive coordinator, who is a former quarterback's coach. That's where the screw up was happening. Don't give me the confused look.
It's also not Zach Taylor, it's Zach Robinson.
Oh, son of a bitch.
Zach Taylor's the Bengals Cincinnati.
Yeah, no. All right. Zach Robinson. They spelled that. Do they even spell it the same way? I don't even know.
I don't know.
I was going for the BS protection there. Anyway, Zach Robinson, the former quarterback's coach in LA under McVay's system, is now the OC. See, I should just stuck with the acronyms. OC in Atlanta, and Kirk Cousins enjoyed the most fruitful years of his career under the same system. So I think that familiarity too, you skip the whole like, oh, we don't know how it'll work with this new team. You skip all that. So it's a perfect situation. This is, in all honesty, this may have been the best free agents signing in this entire period.
I agree with this one. Atlanta needed a quarterback. They got themselves a really good one here. So, all right, let's flip things though here, Tad. Let's get to a guy who's unfortunately his fantasy value dropped because of where he signed or where he was traded to. So, who's the guy whose fantasy value dropped heading into 2024?
The end run of free agency. Such a shame. Their stock price was so high and then just plummeted to nothing, which was Austin Ekeler. Man, this guy needed to hit a home run. I mean, we're going to kick it to baseball, it's like when Aaron Judge or Giancarlo Stanton or Juan Soto, God damn it, I just named 3 Yankees. When all of them are up to bat,
and
it's
your entire outfield, you named.
It's so unfair. I hate them. I hate them so much. When who's our third base? Arenado. There we go. When Arenado is at bat, and you're just like, because they just struck out. That's how I felt with the Ekeler free agency, as he was one of my favorite bounce back candidates. If he'd signed with the right team, I would have been like, Ekeler, like, look, that was a shit system. That was a shit situation. It was just all around terrible for everyone involved. Get him in a new good situation and you're good to go. And where does he go? Goddamn Washington. Why? I don't understand it. He steps into a team. Well, first off, let me just say this. He finishes running back 28 last year.
Yeah.
And now he goes to Washington, where you have a very unclear quarterback situation. I know what people are going to scream. It's going to be May. It's going to be Daniels. Okay, great. But if it's May, my love for May has slowly dropped off the more of his tape I watch. And as for Daniels, it's the exact same thing we were talking about between Justin Fields and DeAndre Swift, where if it's Daniels, he's going to be stealing a lot of volume. So not a great situation there. On top of everything, you had to keep in mind, Washington got rid of Eric Bieniemy. I know Washington's offense looked surprisingly good last year, but without Bieniemy, I don't think they're going to be the same. And I know they're not going to be the same because they brought in Cliff Kingsbury, who's going to run a spread offense. And spread offenses, while not unkind, to running backs tend to not be the best fantasy production, for running backs. So in total, it's just, I'm not sure he can be healthy, him being Ekeler. He missed 3 games last year. He's in a division with two of the top defenses in the league between Philadelphia and Dallas. It just doesn't seem like a good fit. You have an aging, injury-prone running back with a team that's trying to rebuild. I don't like that fit at all. And I think he just his fantasy value is dead to me. I wouldn't even draft him.
Wow. Okay, that's a
No,
little bit
he's
of an
undraftable.
extreme take. That's
Nope,
extreme of a
undraftable with
take.
me.
I do have concerns, obviously, with the injury last season. He just wasn't his, true Austin Ekeler stuff that we saw from previous seasons. So we're hoping for a rebound season here in Washington, but I also feel that he's in a backfield with a pretty good.
Let's kick it back to a couple words ago. What'd you say? Hoping.
What did I say?
Hoping.
Yeah. No, hoping. Yeah.
Yeah. Hope is dead in fantasy football. Don't hope in fantasy football. That is your number one mistake right there.
That's fair. But I'm also not going to eliminate him off my draft board because it's like he lands in a situation, I think, which also sort of confuses me a little bit too. There's an established running back there, Brian Robinson Jr. So it's like, yeah, I know he brings a different skill set. So it's like in a spread offense, I think he can sort of see more value in the passing situations compared to Brian Robinson Jr. So that's where I sort of see a little bit of a leg up for him. But it's just like, they could have just hung on to Antonio Gibson, who is now playing in New England now. So, I mean, it's just like, I really don't know why they ended up spending that kind of money on Austin Ekeler, unless they expect him to take the role for Brian Robinson, because Brian Robinson also dealt with some injuries. So, I mean, to me, that's like, they're both going to like, help each other out. So it's like when one's hurt, the other one's playing. When the other one's hurt, the other one's playing. So it's just like, but either way, I think that just hurts both of their value as far as fantasy running backs heading to the next season. But yeah, as far as him being like one of the first running backs taken off the board, that's definitely not happening in 2024. But I think he's a good guy to stash as a flex option. Definitely a guy off the bench for sure.
Because
that's my opinion.
Like you said there, you don't know what week Robinson's going to go off. You don't know what week Eckler's going to go off. He is a flex nightmare. That is the classic trap people fall for. I'm not. I don't, honest to God, even including McLaurin, I don't know if I'm drafting anyone off this Washington team right now.
Interesting. I think we still have a lot of offseason to go through before we can sort of make any sort of like, definite decisions like that. But I mean, you do you, my friend. Like, I mean, go ahead if you want to make those declarations right now. I'm going to go.
I literally just had to check my phone to make sure no moves happened while we were recording. We're
seriously,
good, by the way.
I would doubt it for sure. I'm going to bring up a running back as well, and that's Tony Pollard. He's signing with the Tennessee Titans. So this one I was very confused by, because this was also one of the first moves that happened during free agency, or when the week started, as far as like, oh, they announced this move to replace Derrick Henry. And this was even before Derrick Henry signed with Baltimore. It was like Tony Pollard signed with Tennessee. They're like, all right, clearly Derrick Henry's not coming back here, but just, you look at Pollard last season, he did finish as RB14 in PPR leagues, but I think the way people were drafting last year, especially with Ezekiel Elliott leaving, they expected him to finish in the top 10, and it just, unfortunately, he averaged 13.1 fantasy points per game in PPR leagues, which is ranked 23rd at the position. So, I mean, he wasn't getting that consistency for you. Tad, he had 2 3-game streaks where he scored less than 10 fantasy points per game, and the big one, that was the killer. Like, he started to look good right before the fantasy playoffs. But during the fantasy playoffs, he had a 3-game streak where he had less than 10 points in each and every game. So it's like, if you were counting out this guy, it's like, all right, he's turning it up right before the playoffs. This is perfect. When he got to the playoffs, he absolutely killed you in the playoffs. So unfortunately, just his streakiness is concerning. The problem here, though, that's a bigger factor to me as to why I found it confusing, was that Tyjae Spears is in Tennessee. And I think him and Tony Pollard, they share a very similar skill set, where it's just like, why are you getting 2 of the same guy? You're getting clones of each other. It's like, I can understand, like we talked about with Austin Ekeler and Brian Robinson, they bring differing skill set. Brian Robinson is that power runner through the tackles. He's the guy that's going to get you yards on the ground. Austin Ekeler, he could be a little bit more of that finesse guy, get you yards through the air. Whereas with Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears, they're the same guy, essentially, based on their skill set. So it's just like, I really just was confused as far as why they made that move. And then you also look at this fact, Tad. Spears is younger than Pollard. The Pollard doesn't even have the age on his side either in this situation. So you look at Spears last year. I know he filled in pretty well for Derrick Henry, both in the air as well as on the ground. So, I mean, I think he could take a lead role from Tony Pollard. But, I mean, that money that they gave to Pollard, I mean, you look at new head coach Brian Callahan there. Like, I think they want to use him in some sort of facility as far as like maybe a lead guy and then sprinkle in Tyjae Spears. But I think Spears will have the better skill set overall, that he's more effective in the offense. I don't know what it is, but just like this whole signing, I was just like, I really don't like his value to take a little bit of a rise here. If anything, like I said, I see it taking a hit here. I maybe flex options for both of these guys, but I think I just have to wait and see how this all shakes out in training camp. But overall, when I saw this news, I was like, this doesn't excite me at all.
No, I completely 100% agree with you, because it'd be different
One of the few moves, Tad, in the AFC South that I think you could have been okay with, because everything else
totally
was just
okay with that. And that was the worst part, is because, again, speaking about Swift being one of the first moves, is Pollard was just, 2 hours later.
Like I said, it happened pretty much that same day. Yeah, it was very
early. It was Monday, otherwise known as about a decade ago. But, you look at, Pollard's APR, or otherwise known as annual percentage return. We were expecting it to skyrocket, right? We were take us to the moon. Instead, he's been kind of TDX, where it's like, oh. Whereas, like, we thought he'd just keep rising, and nothing happened from it. And this signing underwhelmed me. It didn't make a scheme fit sense for me at all. Is the new Titans coach? I'm blanking on his name right now. I know he's the Bengals offensive coordinator, but you look at
Brian Callahan.
Yeah, I was half listening.
You're too busy thinking about all these financial.
No, I wasn't thinking about them. I was looking them up.
Of course, I know you were.
Just wait for the next one I'm doing. But point being is, like, he didn't utilize Joe Mixon all that well either. Not saying that he's bad. I know people are going to yell at me like, Joe Mixon was the top 5 running back this year. Yes, he was. I will not argue against that, because that's, factual. But point being is, if Joe Burrow had stayed healthy the entire year, I don't think he would have been. I think it was the fact that it was like, shit, all we have is Mixon. We got to lean on this guy. But normally they don't have a run first, run heavy focused offense. And it just doesn't really make sense to me. It feels a lot like we were just talking about with Ekeler, where I found that funny that you said that, oh, wait till training camp. Training camp's not going to tell me anything. Like, these guys are going to split it all year, and they're going to cannibalize each other, where one will have a great week. The other will have a great week. We're going to talk about it on free agency waivers, inevitably. But it's just, no. To me, he's not undraftable, Pollard, but I don't see him anything more as a very solid bench and weight option.
That's fair. But yeah, for me, it's just like, I saw this move and I was just like, why are you making this move? You could have gone to anywhere else.
It felt weird. Like, if they signed Swift, I would have been like, ooh, that's interesting.
That would have been more intriguing. 100%.
Right? Exactly. Like that would have been interesting. But Pollard to the Titans, that was the first one that really made me like raise my eyebrows and be like, whoa. Okay.
Or Josh Jacobs, if they signed him, that would have been
another
too,
interesting
but just
one
like,
too,
seeing Tony Pollard side there, I was just like, this doesn't excite me at all. I very much like Tyjae Spears a little bit more than Tony Pollard anyway. So yeah, we'll see how this all plays out. All right, Tad, let's sort of get to a couple more guys here. Let's go over some sleepers and some busts. Let's start with some sleepers here. So who's another sleeper for the 2024 season that I think is just the underrated signing here in free agency, but they could possibly pay good dividends once it comes to the fantasy season?
All right, so this is a one-time very high stock, but now they had closed down for a bit. They didn't do so great, but they're about to come out with a very high IPO. Come on, that was good.
You can't have a stock after it.
I don't know how this works.
No, it was all bad. It was just go with your take.
IRA.
That doesn't apply either. It really doesn't at all.
All right. So this guy is a great investment for your 401k. And that is, how about this for a sneaky sleeper? Deontay Johnson.
Oh, I want to hear your take.
I'm telling you, it's risky.
I want to hear your take on this one.
It's a massive risk. But I think it's worth it, is because, so for those of you who don't know, Deontay Johnson was just recently traded from the Steelers to the Panthers for a swap of picks. So the Steelers went up from like roughly pick 190 to now, oh shit, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, like pick like 147 or 148, something like that. So they moved up about 50 picks, which is a great pick. And on top of that, they also picked up Dante Jackson who's a very good corner. That was a very good move by the Steelers. Like, if you're going to get rid of Deontay Johnson, but I want to talk about Deontay Johnson. I still believe in this man. I believe in Harvey Dent. I believe in Deontay Johnson, just like that. I'm switching Batman references now.
That's more your wheelhouse. Stick with that.
Okay. All right. So with Deontay Johnson, yes, he has underperformed. I am not going to defend any of his, past seasons. However, you look at what he has done with very little, because let's admit it, I feel like the NFL as a collective has just kind of like come together and been like, yeah, Matt Canada sucked. Like, that dude just did not know what he was doing. And I think that's proven because Deontay Johnson, while he has struggled and he has not scored more than 5 touchdowns in over 3 years now, he has averaged 10 yards or more per catch than in every year of his 4-year career. So that tells me that Deontay Johnson has enough explosive potential to still be relevant in today's NFL. And now you pair him with an Adam Thielen, and you go into, okay, what's the Carolina Panthers game plan for him? You saw this often because it wasn't very hard to game plan for Carolina's offense last year. Who are they going to throw it to? Adam Thielen. Okay, can we guard this like 35-year-old white guy? Yes, we can. And then they did that, and their passing game fell apart. Now you are adding some, dynamics to this offense where you have the stretch the field guy with Deontay Johnson. It's kind of the same thing I was talking about with DJ Moore. It's about what role you fill. Is Deontay Johnson your number one go-to guy? No. But if he becomes that number 2 stretch the field, like deep threat type of guy, he will, and he has given us huge fantasy performances out of it. So I think that, am I saying he's a wide receiver 1 or 2? No. But I think he will be that streaky. This is a spot you brought up earlier. This is where he's a flex-worthy draftable player, because depending on the matchup, I think that his explosive potential, his deep threat potential, paired with Adam Thielen, at least for this year, has potential to give you some really big weeks. And here's the best part is, like you said, I said Deontay Johnson. Most of you probably didn't even know he's a Panther. So he's probably not going to get drafted in a lot of these leagues. So I'm not telling you even to draft him. I'm just saying he is such a deep, good sleeper that he should be a top waiver wire target for you going into next season. That's how deep the sleeper is, and that's how much I believe in him.
That's fair. That's fair. And you look at Carolina, they did make some investments during free agency into the offensive line. I know we're not going to touch on it that much with Robert Hunt. They also signed Damian Lewis to upgrade their offensive line there. So clearly they know they need to protect Jordan Love. Let's get Bryce Love. Young. That's
they would love to have Jordan Love.
They would love to have Jordan Love, but no, they're going to protect Bryce Young. That's what I was trying to think of there, to obviously give him more time to find his open receivers. And I think if he could get that time, then I think we could see more Adam Thielen intrigues me. I don't know whether last season was a fluke or whether he could still continue heading into next year. So, I mean, that's going to be interesting to see.
I think Deontay Johnson's going to eat into that a little bit.
So I think Deontay Johnson, adding him, I think that will give this passing offense a little bit more credibility too. Obviously, I think they only have a pick at the very top of the second, so they don't have a first-round pick, obviously, trading that to Chicago. So I don't doubt that they may invest at a wide receiver at that position there, depending on who's available at that point. So, but just overall, like Deontay Johnson, I think he's always been a reception guy. So it's like he's always going to get you a lot of points in PPR leagues. But if you're not playing in a PPR league, then yeah, this is a guy that you just don't want to touch at all. Because yeah, for some reason, he has some sort of, phobia of scoring touchdowns. Like he just doesn't score them enough. And so yeah, hopefully that will change here. Hopefully that'll change here in Carolina. Like, I mean, that's a very deep sleeper option. I very much like that in that situation. But just, yeah, I'm very tentative on Carolina right now because I went all in on Miles Sanders last year. I absolutely got burned for that one.
That's fair, but Carolina was an unmitigated disaster. Hence why Frank Reich got fired, halfway through his very first season. The first time in my lifetime that I can remember that ever happened, where a first-year coach was fired before the season was even up. So I don't think – I think that's why I like Deontay Johnson so much as a sleeper. Honestly, maybe even Bryce Young, Miles Sanders. They're all interesting names, is because I think people are going to be so scared by that CAR next to their name that they're not going to touch these guys. And in reality, you gotta – it's not the 0-16 Lions again. It's not that. I don't think this team is really headed for another train wreck. I don't think they'll be good. Don't get me wrong, when Carolina misses the playoffs, don't be hitting out my mentions with, you said they'd be good. But I don't think they're the train wreck that people are scared they're going to be. And Deontay Johnson, yes, I said he's only scored, 5 touchdowns, 2 of his last 3 seasons, 0, of course, with that horrific season 2 years ago. But before that, he scored 8. So I don't think it's fair to pin on him like, oh, you can't score touchdowns. I think he can in the right system. So I don't know. I'm a believer in him.
All right. I love the
He's gonna
optimism
play
in
like 2
Carolina with
games,
you,
isn't
but
he?
just, yeah, I'm like I said, count me as one of those many that are just seeing that CAR, and I'm a little bit more worried. So, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe that'll change as we get after the draft, and we'll see how that all goes. So I'm going to go with the sleeper that I think you were very high on when he got traded to Arizona, but now he's landed in a new situation. I very much like this situation a lot better than his Arizona situation. That's Marquise Hollywood Brown. He is now a member of the Kansas City Chiefs, and we're talking about any situation that lands a player in Kansas City, we're not going to be happy about it. I'm not really happy about this one. Because it's so good of a fit. Tyreek Hill's absence, I think, was felt in this offense. Obviously, it led to Travis Kelce getting a lot more of the receptions, a lot more of the workload. And it sort of weared a little bit on him as far as, a lot of rumors about him contemplating retirement and all that stuff. And then if it wasn't for the emergence of Rashee Rice last season as a rookie, I think this offense would have been very one-dimensional with only Travis Kelce, a little bit of Isaiah Pacheco out of the backfield here. But now you had a guy like Marquise Brown with the emergent Rashee Rice, and then you got this guy on the other side who could take the top off the defense. You look at what he's had, Ted, in the last 4 seasons with Marquise Brown. He's had over 100 targets in every single season. Here's the problem, though, is that he has been a little bit iffy as far as staying healthy. He's only played in 2 seasons in his 5-year career where he's played all 16 games. Only one of those seasons, he started every 16 games. So, that's a little bit of an issue there. But when you're not going to be asked to be the primary guy like he was in Baltimore, like he was in Arizona, I wonder if that pressure is actually going to be a lot better for him, whereas it'll allow him to sort of flourish a little bit better and be a lot more of a productive receiver in a Patrick Mahomes-led offense with Andy Reid still at the head coach sort of calling all the plays there, right? So I think I very much like this situation. I think I'm still labeling it as a sleeper because we have to see exactly how high octane the Chiefs offense is going to get. You have to see the past couple of seasons, they've been more defensive focused as opposed to offensive focused. That's why we see a little bit of that drop off with Patrick Mahomes, like you were saying earlier, where it's just we can't really rely on him as being that guy anymore. So it's will they sort of take a different approach now where they sign a guy like Marquise Hollywood Brown? Because Tad, before Hollywood Brown, they were rolling out with the likes of Kadarius Toney, hasn't worked out so far. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, yeah, here and there, every so often. Sky Moore
drops everything apparently.
Yeah, Sky Moore, fortunately, just hasn't panned out yet either. And then obviously McCole Hardman with those rumors of him leaking information, all this stuff. You remember reading those articles?
No, I do not.
That was weird. Yeah. So that's why he ended up getting released by Kansas City. So look into that because that was very interesting. So they obviously could feel that deep threat role that Tyreek Hill left open. So I think Marquise Hollywood Brown, I think he fits that role a lot better. So I very much like him as a sleeper in 2024.
So 2 things with this. One's petty, one's legitimate. I'll go petty first. Do you remember? Oh God, I think it was about 3 years ago now. Almost 3 years ago and a month, where we wasted an entire draft live stream talking about who is better, Allen Robertson, according to Alro, or Hollywood Brown. And I was the only one among 8 people saying that no, Hollywood Brown is better. Even you came back. I still remember this. Shows how much I remember from this night. Your dad's car broke down or something.
Yeah,
and you had to go pick. Yeah, so you had to go pick him up, and you came back, and you rejoined the stream. And I was already battling 5 other people. And I thought that my loyal co-host would come to my aid. And I said, "Who's better, Hollywood Brown or Robinson?" You go, Robinson.
Yeah.
One of those players is out of the league. The other just got signed by the most recent dynasty we have seen in the sport. I want to hear you say it. Who is right?
Robinson's still with the Steelers, though. He also released.
I think he was released. Either way, who is right? Who is better? It doesn't matter if he's on a roster or not. Who is better?
Well, once again, if you're going to say the same thing about Deontay Johnson, you can say the same thing about Allen Robinson.
I won't hear any of this bullshit. Who is right about who's better, Allen Robinson or Hollywood Brown?
This still doesn't admit that Hollywood Brown is better.
Lord,
he is barely better. Yes, barely better. But that doesn't mean
I'll take barely better. No, I heard better. I'll take
barely better. Yeah,
I'll take it. Thank you. Second one is kind of semantics. Is he a sleeper? I feel like when fantasy season rolls around, he's going to be you know what? you know what? I will give you a sleeper, but and we've talked about this in the past. Every year there's that popular sleeper that becomes so popular. Is he really a sleeper anymore? This is totally going to be that guy.
That I could probably see that right now. I'm going to call him a sleeper now, but yeah, as we get closer to fantasy season, everybody's
that literally just, that's not even a bit. Like that just hit me. He's totally going to be
legitimate. I could see that happening 100%.
Yeah. But no, I'm with you. I think he'll be kind of like what I said with Deontay, but obviously on a much larger scale. He'll be streaky. Right. It's kind of like what we saw with Rashee Rice this year. It's like he'll have some really, really good weeks, and then he'll have other like not so good weeks. So I think
down the stretch, Rashee Rice was a lot more dependable. So I expect a lot from him next year. But yeah, I like the streakiness with Marquise Brown heading into 20.
Yeah, but hence exactly why I think that he'll be streaky though, is because I think Rashee right now, whose value does this help more? I think it really helps Rice's value.
It does.
I like Rice a lot more now.
I do,
because I think they can use him as more of like a dependable number one, kind of like what I was talking about with Keenan Allen, of like a number one every down dependable receiver. And hey, if we want to go for the deep shot, Hollywood Brown's still going to be running 4-3, 4-4 right down the sidelines. So yeah, he's going to be good. That was a great signing. And apparently he's dead to Kyler Murray. I don't know if you saw that tweet.
I did. Lots of death going around. A
lot of death going around.
It's weird. It's very weird.
Including hopefully Chris Ballard. So spend some money, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, very interesting. All right, Tad, let's get to the other side of the coin here. So who's a fantasy bust heading into 2024?
So I like the pettiness of this move from the player. I don't think it will work out for him. I don't like the Aaron Jones to Minnesota fit. I get it, because that move shocked me. The whole Green Bay running back switch up.
That was very peculiar. Yeah.
It was weird. Yeah. It was weird because I first saw that like they signed Josh Jacobs, and I was like,
yeah,
that's really weird. And then like 2 minutes later, I got the alert that they released Aaron Jones. I'm like, okay, that makes more sense. Feels like a lateral move to me, but whatever. That's a discussion for another time. So Aaron Jones decides to sign with their main rivals and goes to Minnesota. I respect the pettiness, sir. Good job. Good job. That is an A+. That is a Brett Favre level. That is what Brett Favre wanted to do. He never wanted to go to the Jets. He wanted to go to the Vikings. Sure. I think there's a reason that the Packers didn't want Brett Favre to go to the Vikings and therefore blocked that move. But they were like, Aaron Jones, you want to go to the Vikings? You go right ahead, sir. Because and there's more of a note on the Vikings than it is Jones. I think that team's not going to be very good. Right now, their current starter is Sam Darnold at quarterback. And I think the most telling thing is it was very clear that, oh God, let's see if I can nail this off the top of my head. Kevin O'Connell?
Yeah.
Yeah, how about that? Upset alert. Kevin O'Connell clearly thought that his system was better than the player, meaning that like they let Dalvin Cook walk. They cut Dalvin Cook because it's like, we don't need you. My system can produce good running backs. And you know what? The Rams haven't done in a while. Produce a good running back. So I don't know, because he's a McVay guy. So I don't know why he thought that. And it clearly he thought wrong, because Alexander Madison was their leading rusher last year.
That was terrible.
700 yards. That was it. 700 yards. So now you inject Aaron Jones into that, conversation. I don't see it as a very good upgrade. I don't see that running game being a very potent attack, especially because I think this offense is going to be behind a lot, and they're going to be passing a lot, which means not a whole lot of opportunities for Jones to really succeed. I'm not saying he's undraftable, but I think he'll be drafted as a running back 2 flex play for a lot of people that aren't keeping up, because they just see the name Aaron Jones and they're like, oh, he's good. He killed it with me in the Green Bay the last couple of years. Now, Minnesota, what's the difference? A lot is the difference. A potent offense being the main one. So I think that Aaron Jones is a guy who's going to be overdrafted and gonna hurt a lot of people that don't follow the game closely.
No, I agree. I think he's a good flex option, maybe a bench guy, but as far as using him as like a starting running back in your roster, I don't think he has that talent left anymore. And I think very much, like you said, the situation is going to play a bigger factor too, where it's just like, what are they doing at quarterback?
He's good. He's still good. He's not spent or anything. It's just I think for pettiness sake, I really do believe this. I think for pettiness sake, he went to the Vikings just as like a FU to the Packers.
Could be.
But bad call, dude. Bad call.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how that works out. But I'm not very optimistic on that situation. Very similar situation that I am not optimistic about as well is the New York Giants, with them replacing Saquon Barkley with Devin Singletary.
No!
You look at what the offensive line was doing in New York, and I mean, Tad, they gave up 85 sacks last season, which was 20 more than the second place team, which was the Commanders and the Panthers, tied with 65. They were ranked 30th based on PFF's offensive line rankings in 2023. Saquon Barkley was able to cover up a lot of those issues that they had, so he was still able to look good. But could you imagine if their offensive line was better? He would have had an even better season. Now you insert a guy like Devin Singletary, who looked good last season in Houston. Don't get me wrong, but just unfortunately, I don't think he could translate that to the situation here in New York, where once again, very similar to like you were saying with Minnesota, where it's like they have Sam Darnold in the center. There's rumors that they may decide to move on from Daniel Jones. They're going to possibly look at JJ McCarthy. But just like whatever it is, it's just like that quarterback uncertainty worries me. That offensive line has not fixed up their issues. Just overall, their offensive situation. I don't know if you saw it, Dad, but Darren Waller is retiring. So it's like, they have
I didn't see.
They have a holdout there. So it's just like their receivers are not all that strong either. So I mean, just overall, this offensive situation in New York is not going to be all that great. You look at just, the Giants ranked 16th in rushing attempts, and they also ranked 24th in rushing touchdowns. So unfortunately, they were behind a lot. So that led to them more passing. And so that's not going to be good for the running game as well. So, I mean, he looked good. He had 898 rushing yards. This is Devin Singletary, 4 rushing touchdowns last season with 167.34 fantasy points in PPR leagues. But just going to New York now, I don't expect those numbers to replicate. I expect that to drop quite a bit. I expect it to be a bench play at this point because I just don't like the situation in New York. I really just don't think he's going to have a good situation there and lead to good fantasy aspects because, like I said, Saquon Barkley was able to cover up a lot of their issues. But yeah, now you insert Devin Singletary, who's a step below Saquon Barkley. It's just not going to be the same.
So reading the New York Giants depth chart right now, it's Daniel Jones, Devin Singletary, Darius Slayton, Isaiah McKenzie, Wan'Dale Robinson, Gunnar Olszewski.
Yeah, the longtime Patriot.
Good God.
And he's a special teams guy. He's not a receiver.
Yeah, it tells you something. He's the second receiver on the depth chart. And Jalen Hyatt, and now that Darren Waller is apparently retired, Daniel Bellinger.
Yeah.
Woo!
It doesn't excite me at all. That doesn't excite me at all.
I mean, look, we were saying like what 3 letters scare you away from player entirely? I see NYG. I'm staying the hell away from that.
Oh gosh. So I mean, Tad, this was a very jam-packed episode. We're coming up against it here, but I mean, like we talked about at the beginning of the episode, like guys, we only scratched the surface. There's so much more we could have gone into, but we don't want to go on for another 2
We didn't even test the fact that Russell Wilson is now a Steeler.
It's true. So there's a lot that we can get into. Guys, if there's more information that you need, if there's specific information that you need, hit us up on our Twitter handles there. You got me at UpTheSide23. You got Tad Side94. Got the show handle at The Decide Guys. And of course on Instagram at The Decide Guys as well. So hit us up. Let us know if you need specific information. If you're playing like Tad's friend Jason Davis, you're playing in a dynasty league and need some help as we get closer to these rookie drafts before the draft is happening here. Need some help there. If you need some help making some trades, guys, hit us up. We're here to help you out with all of the wheelings and dealings that have been happening. We're here to navigate you through all of it to get you in the best prepared situation as we head into the 2024 season and 2024 fantasy season. Guys, make sure you subscribe. We're listening to your podcast. We're always up to date with our podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. So we're always up to date with our videos as well. And guys, please support our parent network at LAFB Network. They're giving you a lot of great information when it comes to the Rams and the Chargers at the professional level and the Bruins and the Trojans when it comes to the college level. Tad, I think it's safe to say there's a lot of happening right now in LA when it comes to the pro sports because we got an Aaron Donald retirement. We had the trade of Keenan Allen. I mean, there's a lot of things happening. LAFB has you covered with podcasts and articles and everything that you would need with all those 4 teams. So, guys, please get them a support because without them, there would be no us. And, guys, seriously, to everybody who's already listening to our podcast, who's interacting with us on social media, who's watching your videos, who's supporting us in any way and every way that you can, we can't thank you enough.
Yeah, I want to talk about that Aaron Donald retirement because that timing was weird. That was very weird to me. But
the bigger news, Jimmy Garoppolo is now back up in LA with the Rams too. So there's that too.
Okay, I assume that's what the Slack meant by Jimmy's in LA, and you said ha 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 ha. I was like, yeah,
that was me. Yep, that was me.
Yeah. Good call. But yes, if you want all the LA talk, look at all the other. If you're watching on YouTube, it's right below. There are like a dozen channels right below us. Check out any of those channels. We just did a guest spot on Salute to Troy, which was so much fun, and I'm very shocked I still have a job after that. But yeah, we have so much great content if you're interested in LA football, and if you're not, we are still here for you guys. Like Amir talked about, our good friend of the show, Jason Davis. I am not exaggerating here. We talked for 35 minutes about his draft strategy. I'm not saying I'm going to do that for all of you, but what I am saying is I will definitely do research and look into help for you guys. Shout out to another longtime listener and fan of the show, Jay. Chatted us about like, hey, Matt Pryor, how about that? And as a TCU alum, player went to TCU, and a former Colt, I was like, don't get excited. So don't think you're
Niner too. So I gave my input as well.
Oh, what was your input? I didn't see that.
He was a reserve for them pretty much.
That's exactly what I said.
So,
I was just no, don't get excited. But that shows you get unbiased, opinions and unbiased.
And that's specific too. So any signing that happens, we will give a comment on it if you want.
How often does a player hit that trifecta? Went to one of our alma maters, played for both of our teams, and yet we still were like, he's not that good.
Yeah.
Man, he's fine. He's fine. He's not terrible. Matt Pryor, please don't sue us, but he's fine. So guys, we are here for you. We are, and that's what we enjoy. That's why we do this, is to give you the best advice out there, whether it's fantasy football, draft, and trust us, the draft analysis is about to ramp up big time the next few weeks. So whatever questions you have for the offseason, because we're not done yet. There are a lot of trades coming up through the pipeline that we don't know about, but I promise you, if you want the best analysis, LAFB Network is where to find it. So be sure to follow us on YouTube, like us on YouTube as well. That really helps our engagement. So as always, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching, and please stay safe.